3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Hello and welcome back to Manhattan Beach Studios. I'm Mark. I'm here on the soundstage, and today I wanted to show you a product that we have used for many, many years. Not only have we used this product, but we've used its predecessors, and so we have a lot of experience with this company called eMotimo. And my good friend Brian is the developer of this product, and one of the great things about products like this is you could pick up the phone and you can talk to the company, and you're talking to the people who develop it, that develop the software and things like that. But Brian went ahead and put together this particular unit. And one of the great things about Brian is that he knows photography, and so he knew what photographers were looking for when it came to constructing the product. And what this unit allows us to do is control motors. And it has a built-in pan and tilt system, but it also has a couple of other motor drivers. So let me walk you through this particular product. Now, the unit I have right now is controlled from a V-mount battery. We can also plug in a 24-volt power source, which allows faster moves and with higher payloads. And so it's a very, very portable unit. I just threw this thing on the tripod right now. I popped a V-mount battery in, and away we go. The unit, and Brian, you have to forgive me if I misstate some of the elements of this product, but I'm so excited about what I am able to state that I think we can actually promote this product pretty well. Now, Brian's not paying us for this, but when we talk about promoting a product, it's promoting a product that we love. And anyone who's watched this channel knows I'm not ashamed at saying the stuff that's bad. So if there's something I don't like, I'm happy to say it. And this is a product that hasn't really offered very much bad. As a matter of fact, on the couple of unique needs we've had, we've picked up the phone, we've called the company, and they've actually given us custom firmware to deal with particular needs that we have. The product itself, at its core, is a pan and tilt head. And so I popped the V-mount battery in here, and the first thing you see is that there's a menu that pops up. The menu says live motion, program, photo tools, and settings. Now there's a lot of options that you have. I want to highlight that this is a controller, a regular run-of-the-mill PlayStation controller, like the kind that maybe sank the submarine a few months back. We had a tough time sometimes connecting. That has been updated in firmware, and everything really now works quite well. Once you're connected, you get control of the menu. So if we were to point back at the menu, we've got live motion, program, photo, and settings. And as you can see immediately, we can switch amongst those particular settings. Once we're in live motion, we have the ability to set whether we want to go quiet and slow, quiet and medium speed, quiet and fast. Now those are great for motion picture stuff. When you're actually filming on set, you know the unit is going to be as quiet as possible, and it really is very, very quiet. And so from here you can see when I'm in quiet, let's say quiet medium, and I can start to move the camera, and there's a little pan to the right, pan to the left, and then of course we can go up, we can go down. Now I went ahead and Claudia, can you see this motor right here? So we've got this motor set up, and if you were to look and we bring this all the way around, you'll notice right here on the side I have two additional motor jacks. And one of those motors I've gone ahead and plugged into this motor that you see in the front. And what do they call this? The FZ motor, FZ, which means focus and zoom. And what this motor does is allows additional control. And if you were to start to do it, let me tilt down a little bit, or maybe up. You'll notice that I now have control over an additional motor. In this particular case, I'm using the focus. I'm using zoom. I've decided to use zoom. I had these wheels custom made. They're just basically 3D printed wheels, and so they just snap onto any camera, any camera that has that diameter, and all of a sudden you have the ability to control additional things. I could have just as soon snapped this onto focus. And this is really, really important because not only do I have control over this, I have full programming capabilities. But right now I'm just showing you this. Now, in addition, there's another jack, which you may have seen over here, for another motor. right here. There's one motor that's going to my focus zoom motor, one motor driver going to my focus zoom motor. I've got another driver right here that is being routed over to a motor that is on a wheel that I designed and patented. This is for product photography and rotation. And you'll notice that I have control over that as well. So now I'm able to control 4 motors off of this device. I can control the rotation, I can control the zoom simultaneously, I can rotate, and I can gradually bring this sucker down. So that's 4 motors simultaneously being controlled from a PlayStation joystick. So super duper cool. Now, one of the things that this was built for was the ability to have all of that be completely automated. And you'll notice, oops, let me slide this out of the way so we don't bump into anything. So if you were to go into the different modes, that's quiet and medium. By the way, just for what it's worth, you're listening to me. Claudia, can you hear me pretty clearly? Were you able to hear any of the moves? Yeah, I can't even hear them in the room. So from a production standpoint, we have no worries when we're in those quiet modes. They're amazing modes for live moves on camera or program moves on camera. So super duper cool. I've got a couple other modes here. One of them is called time-lapse. And time-lapse is really built, let me bring this back over. Time-lapse is built around being able to move the camera an increment and fire a shutter, or you can always manually fire the shutter. But this is an amazing tool because of that capability. It's all just built into the preset. Now you don't need to use a preset. You could do all the programming yourself. But if you choose to use a preset, here it is, the time-lapse mode. Fastest, lightning fast, lightning. Ooh. So be careful with fastest. And then I have the ability to build users here, and then we're back to quiet and fast. Okay, so that kind of wraps up its core modes. But within each one of these capabilities is the ability to have a starting point and ending point with all of the motors combined and tell it when to go. And so if we were to do that, instead of going into live mode, I would go into program. And here's where I can go in and I can say, I want to start. I would like to start, and I'm going to start facing to the right. I'm going to start facing down. I'm going to start with my zoom motor all the way in, and I'm going to start with the wheel over here. Now I'm going to come out of start. Claudia, can you still see the menu? Going out of start, I'm going to end. Now with end, I'm going to bring this around. Maybe I'm going to aim it up. This time I'm going to focus almost all the way out here. And I'm going to spin the wheel this way. Okay, are you still able to see here? So now when we were to scroll down, I now have a lot of other options. I can talk about my, my speed for all of these items. I've got an interval, how much time static. I can ramp up. Actually, I appear to be in time-lapse mode here. Yeah, let me switch out of time-lapse mode. I'm back in video mode, so hopefully all my other settings are there. Now we can say I want to do the duration of 10 seconds for this entire move. I don't want it to have any pause before we start. I don't need a pause at the end. Speed doesn't really matter at this point because I'm in duration mode. Here's a ramp. Do I want it to kind of ease in, ease out? And now we go to start. And notice how every motor has just readjusted. And I don't know how much that's hard to get in one camera move, but from here, all I have to do now is hit the X button here on the remote. And you're going to see everything kind of go in 10 seconds. And here we go. Every motor is working. Pan, tilt, zoom, and the wheel. So it's super cool. you can swap out any of these motors for anything else that you want. So let's say, for instance, you would like to do a slide and you would like to come in on a particular object. Well, replace the wheel with a Dana dolly or with any other slider that has motorized control. And now, as long as the motor has a unit that can plug in, all you have to do is swap that out. Now you can run a slide into a zoom. You can run a pan and tilt. You can you can pan across an object or against an object, which is a very common time-lapse move, where as you slide, the camera slides in the opposite direction or with the object. You can set up an interview, where as you slide all the way across, the camera stays perfectly pinned to the object. And as a matter of fact, here you could actually theoretically set up to 5 keyframes, meaning you can add different focus points or different zoom points along the way. Or of course, if you're using a camera like our XF605 or our C300s or something like that with really good autofocus, you know, as long as you're aimed at the object, maybe face recognition is going to be all you really need in order to lock your focus in. You could slide forward on a macro. You can go incrementally, but let's get to that right now. Let's stop for a second here. Oh, and let's say you wanted to go backwards. I can reverse this. Just say go. And here we go. All the motors, everything is going back to its original location at the speed that was set up. So this is a 10-second move. You can repeat that. You can set it on loop mode, just like an interview. You can have it ping back and forth, go all the way over, and then all the way back, and then all the way over, and all the way back. So it's really super cool for interview mode. But if we were to hop out of here, go to reset, and I'm back to program mode. Go to live. Let's set this up so I can see my screen. And then once again, back out. Okay, and now let's talk a little bit about time-lapse mode, because time-lapse mode is among the coolest modes that has been really created, and this particular unit has always made it so unbelievably easy for us. I can now go into program shots, and this time I'm setting it to time-lapse. Here we're going to set a start point of right where we are. My end point, let's say it's just going to be right over here. I'm going to tilt it up. That's my end point on my time-lapse. Let's also pretend I'm on a slider, because time-lapses look super cool when you slide across your foreground objects. And I'm not going to, well, let's worry a little bit about this, this other motor. Oop. Okay. There we go. Now we have our motors. And you could see here that we are set for 28 frames at 1.5 seconds each. So let's expand that a little bit. Let's go at 2.5 seconds each. Now there are going to be buffers. It's got to be static. But there's one more object now that you're going to see, which is that there's one more wire that's been connected directly to my camera. And this is the R5, by the way. But this camera is basically going to say, we're breaking that move up. Given the number of the incremental amount of time and how much time you want to stop and how long this move is going to take, it now knows how many frames it's going to shoot. So every time it stops, it's going to send a shutter trigger to the camera, and it's going to take that picture. So essentially, this time lapse is 100% independent of any further action. And here we are going back to our starting point. And you'll notice, if we can see this, it may be hard given, yeah, we're not going to be able to see this. We may have to come around. But once we start out in time-lapse mode. We set our pan and tilt. And here I'm going to set a little bit of a rotation. Now I'm going down to my ending point. going to set a little bit of a rotation here. Let's do a little bit of a rotation back. And we're going to come up a little bit. Now we have some additional criteria. So here is our interval. So I'm going to set this as a 4-second interval. Now, whenever you do a time lapse, there's a lot of math involved. For instance, if you're doing a time lapse of a sunset, you have to know where you want the sun to start, where you want the sun to end. And if you want that to be a 10-second shot as a time lapse, you need to know how many frames you need. At 24 frames a second, when you play that thing back, you need to know, well, that sunset lasted 10 minutes. So it's 10 minutes divided by 240 frames equals the interval that you need to have set up. It's really, really important. If you want a time lapse that lasts for the season of winter, and you want that to be a 15-second time lapse, now your interval is going to be hours long, not necessarily a couple of seconds long. And so there's some real math to do here when it comes to configuring your time lapse. But here we're going to set up a 4-second interval. I want no static time. And here's where I'm going to set my number of shots. And for this, I'm going to make this really easy. I'm going to set this to 20 shots. And my ramp, just for our purposes, I'm going to set down to 1, which essentially is a 0 ramp. So as soon as it starts, it's going to be moving. It's the same increment between every shot. I'm not going to have a lead in or a lead out. That's when you don't move. I'm not going to add any additional keyframes. And now I'm going to go to my start. Once again, you're going to hear this, but without bringing a camera around, you're not going to see it. But note that the shutter fires every time the camera stops. And that is part of this shoot, move, shoot. So for this very short little mini time lapse, you're going to notice it's programmed and it's going to do all the work for you. So now I'm going to hit the X key. The first shot has been fired. Okay. There we go. As you can see, all by itself, everything is happening. The wheel is moving, the pan and tilt is moving, and the camera is firing. Okay. So that kind of wraps up a high-level description of this unit. Now, this unit can control other various wireless motors, which is unbelievably cool. It can support, it's stated to be able to support 12 pounds, but I can tell you, we have put Canon C300s on here with Cine servo lenses and some other accessories on those bodies, and this unit has held it perfectly. So I would tend to say that it is a very safe and conservative estimate that this is rated for 12 pounds. I think you could put a lot of gear on here. You want to be careful, of course, with your center of gravity and things like that to make sure you're maintaining a good steady shot. I will tell you our favorite move with this is with the Dana Dolly, because the Dana Dolly allows you to completely slide back and forth, set up the interview shots, do all kinds of stuff like that. But our ability to rotate an object as we slide is simply 2 motor drivers away. All we have to do is use the plugs, plug in our motors, and have one on the Dana Dolly and one on the slider, and one on the rotation device, and then we have automatically 4 motors happening at once. So it's an unbelievable amount of creative control. Now the downside of the Dana Dolly, we'll show this in a separate video, is we don't angle the Dana Dolly. We keep that perfectly level. But we have another slider here that angles perfectly. We can go almost vertical and have this whole unit just simply drive straight up. You just need to make sure you're using the 24-volt motor if you're going to put too much of a load rather than the V-mount battery. So all of that makes this one of our favorite units. It allows us to construct shots exactly as desired. And think about the possibilities. So for instance, we could put a probe lens on here and again, slide on a slider. We can even rotate this whole unit upside down and slide on a slider, and it's perfect. We can shoot macro where we're rotating our focus, or we can do macro where we're sliding, but we could also do macro where all we're doing is choosing the focus motor, so we could focus stack. And so our ability to utilize these 4 motors so quickly is just an amazing tool. Again, we can always add those additional wireless motors. I think Brian said this can go up to 7 motors, but I will say for our purposes, we've never needed anywhere near that, and yet we're able to achieve any shot we can imagine. So that is a very quick overview of the eMotimo Spectrum, one of our favorite pieces of gear. And so definitely drop us a line if you've got any questions. Definitely subscribe. Obviously, this is the place where we've got the toys and we want to share them. And so I'm Mark, behind the camera is Claudia, and thank you for watching The Studio Life.
3, 2, 1.